Hi and welcome to episode 1 of the On Maths podcast, and this first episode will be probably the biggest we're going to do because today we have the advanced information for the exam boards. Now we're looking at the Maths GCSE, not the IGCSE, but just the standard Maths GCSE for Edexcel, AQA and OCR. And if you want to watch this along with us, we are on YouTube. So we have a YouTube channel where you can see the stuff we're talking about. And if you just want to jog along to this information, then we are also a podcast that you can get from your normal podcast people. So what is the advanced information? The advanced information is a document that will tell you what is in the exam. So with our website on maths.com, you can go to the homepage and it will have information there about how you can download it. At the moment, we have the links to each of the advanced information for each of the boards on our homepage, but there might be a thing you've got to click on first in a week or so that will have it. So just go to our website. It will be all on there. We've got all of them. Now, something to mention on that is Edexcel made huge mistakes, and they are significant with their first version. So for the Edexcel one, make sure that you get the updated version, which will be version 2. And I'll show you, and we'll talk about how to tell whether you've got version 1 or version 2 in a second. Version 1 was up for about half an hour. It was downloaded a lot of times, but it probably was downloaded by teachers who understand the difference between, who understand that they've upgraded the version. The differences between version 1 and 2 are significant, so please make sure you check. We're going to first of all start off with Edexcel, then we'll move on to AQA and OCR. I'm not going to go through each of the individual parts. We're going to talk more generally about how we use this information and also about how we're using it on Maths to help support you. So the first thing to note is that the assessments are unchanged. So there will still be 3 papers. One of them will be non-calculator. On Edexcel and AQA, they will all be 80 marks. On OCR, there will be 100 marks. There will still be a higher and a foundation tier. And the non-calculator paper will be paper 1 for Edexcel and AQA and paper 2 for OCR. So everything will be unchanged. It's as if it's a normal exam series, but you are given the topics that will be in the paper in advance, as well as a more detailed formula sheet. In fact, we didn't have a formula sheet for last year's, or for the last time we did a GCSEs paper. What was that, 2019? So we didn't have a formula sheet at all. Formulas were given in the for their corresponding questions. And there really weren't many. There are loads of formulas this time around. We'll have a look through the formula sheet. So why have the exam boards done this? This is a reaction to the fact that your learning would have been massively impacted by the COVID crisis, and so the exam boards feel it's unfair to just do a normal exam, but they also don't want to cut down the content, so their kind of middle ground is they'll still have quite a wide variety of content drawn from the whole course, but they will tell you what will be in each paper. And there are some topics that just won't be in at all. And they advise you to still learn them because they're developing your skills, they're developing your understanding, and I would advise you to still learn them, and I'm sure your teachers will still teach you them. But when it comes to revising, when it comes to D-Day, when it comes to a week before your exam, forget about those topics. Focus on the topics that will be on the paper. And I will assume that your teachers will talk about this probably before you hear me in this podcast, but if they haven't, start asking them now. about this. Chances are your teachers will say, right, this is the plan. After half term, we'll be going through this. And they'll probably print out some document and give it to you of all of this stuff. But you can download it straight from our website as well. So the order of each topic is not given. So if it says, I think one of them is as accuracy or error, whatever it's called, it could be a grade 3 question on, I don't know, significant figures or something, or it could be a grade 9 complicated question on understanding the bounds or whatever. So we don't know what grade each of the questions is. I will look at doing some analysis about overlap between the papers, because potentially that could give us what the grade 4 and 5 questions are, but that's all very hypothetical, I would imagine. There are some topics like histograms will be on the higher paper, because histograms really aren't learned in foundation. The kind of ones that we're talking about for higher. And others, so cumulative frequency and things like that, will still be obviously above grade 5. So you should still cover all the specification content. They kind of are hinting that you will need some skills from elsewhere. There's also some stuff from before the key stage. So there's some stuff in key stage 3 and key stage 2 perhaps that you will need to know. So they assume all prior knowledge. They assume you know all of the key stage 3 stuff. And that's quite difficult because some schools teach very high stuff at key stage 3. But you are expected, for instance, if you do the higher, you're expected to understand all the foundation topics. And you will be asked to apply your context in unfamiliar contexts. So that will be kind of AO2, AO3 questions. It will be just warping the type of question. It will be novel questions that will come along. And it will be context that you wouldn't necessarily assume you would be discussing in the context of that topic. So you've just got to make sure you know the topics well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the information that they've given. Now, if we have a look at the Edexcel one first and discuss it. Remember, looking for version 2, unless Edexcel have released a different version, version 3. If it doesn't say a version number on it, or it says version 1, I think it just didn't say a version number, then you've got the wrong one. So make sure it has version 2 on the front. And so it starts off just discussing what the thing's for in the document. And then it just goes straight into paper 1 for foundation. So the thing that says paper 1F is just the first paper for foundation. So not only does it tell you, for instance, it has arithmetic in it, but it says it's the money and negative number part of arithmetic. It doesn't just say a standard form, but it says you will be asked to convert it or calculate it. So you've got a really good list here of the stuff that will be on the paper and the stuff for you to revise. And as we go through, then it has the paper 2 foundation, paper 3 foundation, and then it just goes straight on to the higher and just has a list of all these topics and everything. Now, what might confuse you perhaps is after it goes through each of the papers, there's a part that says collated content for paper 1, paper 2, paper 3 foundation. Basically what this is if you are studying foundation, it might be helpful for you to have a list of all the stuff that will be on foundation. So when you sit and revise, you can just focus on those things. So what they've done is they've just brought together all the stuff for paper 1, 2 and 3 and put it in a document for you, which is really helpful because this will be what you use as a revision list. It's not so interesting for you to know what's on paper 1, 2 and 3. It's more interesting for you to know what will be on the papers. The only thing I will say is the paper one will be interesting to know. And perhaps if I were you now, I would go through this document, just putting a one next to the things that are on paper one. So money, for instance, is on paper one. So it can show you that it will be assessed in a non-calculator capacity. Especially true for standard form. That is really important that you understand whether that's on the calculator or not, because non-calculator standard form is very different, where you're jumping decimal points or moving numbers depending on how you learn it, rather than the calculator. We've just got to understand how the calculator deals with standard form. And so they have a list of all of that stuff. And I think, I've jumped straight to the end. So at the end of it is the formula sheets, the foundation and higher. Now on maths.com, I've also got just the formula sheets as well. And the formula sheets cover so much stuff. Now, if you are a teacher listening to this, or if you and if you have a long memory, last time we had formula sheets, the issue was that students did not use them, didn't look at them. So I am pleading with you now, make sure you use them, because these formula sheets are incredible about what they have on them. For instance, there's a big problem with understanding trigonometry for foundation students. And here you're given SOHCAHTOA. You don't need to remember it at all. It's given to you in the paper. So like this is way more detailed than a formula sheet has ever been for maths. This has given you way more detail. It gives you the sine rule, the cosine rule, the trigonometric area of a triangle. Like, it's giving you everything. I'm looking at this. When I was looking through this earlier, I was wondering what it doesn't give you. It seems to be quite happy that you haven't been able to learn this stuff throughout the last 2 years, which quite frankly is fair enough since the stuff we've gone through. So as I said, we've got documents on our website on maths.com that just has the formula sheets as well, if that's of interest. And we're going to go on to the AQA. They're all pretty much the same, because what the exam boards have done is they've gone through this together. They've gone through this as a team and agreed the kind of parameters for this with the authorities, the JEC, whatever it's called. And so they've all agreed to do pretty similar things. And the same thing, like they've agreed to do similar things with the new GCSEs from 2015, whenever they started creating them. So that's why they're all 3 papers. That's why there's one of them as a calculator, and one of them is non-calculator, 2 of them as calculator, etc. So the exam boards are pretty much the same. So if you're looking at a different exam board and ruining the fact that a topic has come up here or there that's not on the other one, then there's not an awful lot you can do about it. But looking at these, they are very similar. See, if we've got AQA, we've got standard form, conversion and calculation again. So you can see they are very similar. The different exam boards call things different. Like the syllabus calls them different words sometimes. You might get negative number as a topic, or you might get directed numbers as a topic, for instance. So they just mean the same thing, but it's open to interpretation what to call things sometimes. And so you've got exactly the same thing with AQA. You've got just the individual papers, and then you've got, I think they've collated them, but I'm not sure. Yeah, aggregated content they call it. So aggregated content, you've got all of that towards the end. So you just know what to revise then. And similarly, we've got the formula sheet, and the formula sheet look very similar. If you look the topics, I mean, they're not hugely different really between the exam boards. Cosine, sine, and trigonometric area, I think they might be the same. I think almost certainly they are the same. And this part of the cooperation between the exam boards, that they make sure that they are being consistent with each other. So you don't have two of the exam boards being very generous with the stuff they share, and then one that doesn't, because that would not be fair if you were in that exam board that wasn't. And OCR finally, as you can see, exactly or pretty much the same. You can see here with standard form notation is called. So that's probably maybe converting it, I would imagine, maybe. But like converting an ordinary number. So what is 3,700 in standard form, for instance? And you can go through it, but the layout is very, very similar. And towards the end, it just has foundation tier, which is, again, the collated copy. The one that really I would use section B rather than section A for the OCRs. Because it's a lot more useful to have everything. It's no interest to you really now whether something's on paper 2 or paper 3, but then when we get closer to the exam, it will be all that you think about. You just will focus on, for instance, paper 1, and you won't be interested in paper 2 and 3 just before the paper 1 exam. So that is all the documents, and you can see the formula sheets for OCR are pretty much the same. There isn't really much of a difference in any of the formula sheets. The layout is slightly different maybe, but not much. And yeah, if you flick between them, if you're listening to this, what I'm doing now is just flicking between them and noticing they are pretty much the same. I think the high is in a slightly different place. So if I flick between them, you can see they are exactly the same layout, just almost like the things are in the same part of the page. So Edexcel, AQA, OCR, doesn't matter what you're doing, the formula sheets will be consistent. So the question you probably got on your lips is, what now? What do we do now? Well, discuss it with your teachers. We on Maths will be releasing a predicted paper based on these topics. We're looking at doing a whole host of things. We're looking at collating our topics to each paper for each exam board, which is easier said than done, but that's what we're looking at doing, and we'll release that ASAP. So if you go to our homepage and you can see straight away, right at the top of our homepage, all the stuff that we have available. I would imagine we will have the predicted papers out either next week, which will be half-term week, which is the 14th, week starting 14th, or week starting the 21st. So that's the kind of time frame for releasing our documents and releasing everything we've got. We will have papers on our site on maths.com, but we will also have papers on YouTube for you to go through, and all the information will be there for you. And finally, just to say that we do have papers on there already, and those are before the advanced information came out, so they are completely based on last year's paper, the year before, etc. Actually, there is no paper last year, but the last time that there was an exam and etc. So they are not configured for the advanced information, which only came out today. As I speak, I'm speaking on the 7th of February, by the way. So if you're wondering what I mean by today, it's when I recorded this on the 7th of February. And so please feel free to use those still. They are mock papers. They are a good balance of stuff. I've looked at a few of them, and a few of them actually are accurate to what the exam boards have said, but there are obviously topics on there that just won't be on those papers. So we will be releasing all that stuff very, very soon. Please feel free to let us know anything you wish. We are most active and most quick to reply on our Twitter, and our Twitter handle is @onmathsuk, so @onmathsuk. And just feel free to let us know anything you want. We get loads of messages through of ideas, of resources people are interested in. And now we've got a different avenue to go down, which is our podcast. Then you can just ask if you want me or us to go through anything on the podcast at all. Is there anything that you're struggling with understanding? Is there anything you could do with some support on? And thank you very much for listening to this.